Good evening, Brian. You know, it's been one of the most secretive aspects of the government's war against Al-Qaeda.
We went off.
Can you tell the Muslim people their lives are as precious as our lives?
Well, I've gotten a fabulous response, and I think killing innocent people with drones is rude.
Bot, which aims to replace border or security guards with intelligent surveillance cameras. The robot is armed with a 5.5mm machine gun.
With that, we're back again. Hi there, I'm Darren Howard.
And I'm Robert Nisbet.
You're tuned into Video Radio, Radio Free Canada's assault against our imperious leader to the south. Yes, Mr. Muslim himself.
Mr. Barack Hussein Obama.
Oh, be afraid. Yes, indeed. If you're from Pakistan, you realize that drones are just about the evilest thing that there is out there. And in our editorial opinion, they really suck. Well, let's talk about it. Here's your clip.
Blasty, the magic drone.
He's everything that's great. When you're in a big, he just blows up.
Okay. I just flew back from Yemen, and boy are my wings of death tired. Seriously though, Senator Rand Paul's filibuster was just inspiring. It's just like Mr. Smith goes to Washington. If Mr. Smith filibustered for hours and hours, then sent out a fundraising plea, went on all the major talk shows, and announced his candidacy for president. But while you're all suddenly wondering about me and my drone friends blowing you to bits in Bowling Green, I've been busy abroad for years, killing thousands, with things like signature strikes, which sound fancy, but really just mean we kinda think these people might be suspects. Dang it, another wedding. Don't worry though, they're usually just foreigners. But whether they're foreigners or citizens, first comes firepower, then comes legalese. And if the legalese doesn't work, there's always state secrets, where nobody knows nothing. Except for me. Drones, torture, or prisons, these things have a way of working themselves out. Like how John Brennan is now going to head the CIA, and the agent who blew the whistle on the CIA torture program is on his way to prison. So while you're worried about getting blasted by that liberal Kenyan socialist at home, I'll be blasted abroad. Killing suspects, and suspects' friends, and friends of suspects' friends, and their friends' friends, oops, and their friends' friends, oops, and their friends' friends, and friends of friends, and their friends too, oops.
And their friends' friends, and their friends' friends.
Yes, and of course the Kenyan liberal socialists had to come out and admit that they have been killing people with drones.
And, you know, I hate it when people come out and admit stuff like this.
Even though it never really was that big a secret.
No. You know, it kind of really blows me away. We've got hundreds, and, you know, it breaks my heart, too. Hundreds of children being killed by drones, and they're worried about who gets wiped out on King of Thrones or something like that.
Yeah, right.
Whatever. Okay, this is a radio broadcast for those people who are awake and alive and not putting up with the propaganda and the BS. Why? Because major news is not covering the story.
No, well, we do have a clip from NBC.
Okay? And I don't know. Let's just jump right in on Obama's nightmare. We're here. It's Radio Free. Check it out.
Now to the news that broke late today. The U.S. government admitting for the first time that the U.S. military has killed 4 Americans in drone strikes overseas. Our chief White House correspondent, political director Chuck Todd, with us from there tonight with more on this. Chuck, good evening.
Good evening, Brian. You know, it's been one of the most secretive aspects of the government's war against Al-Qaeda and other extremists. And now it's a little less secret. For the first time, the Obama administration is confirming what we had already reported for some time, that the government targeted a U.S. citizen, Anwar al-Awlaki, for death via drone strike in Yemen. The government also acknowledged 3 other American citizens involved in terrorism have been killed in drone strikes. Now, in the letter to Congress, Attorney General Eric Holder detailed a legal defense for targeting al-Awlaki, well known for jihadist writings. Holder wrote that al-Awlaki's targeting of Americans, including the attempted underwear bomber attack and the plot to hide bombs on cargo planes, made him a legally justified target because he was an imminent threat, could not be captured, and was a legitimate target under the laws of war. Now, this letter to Congress comes on the eve of a speech in which President Obama plans to lay out a broader counterterrorism strategy, including a legal framework and much more public oversight of drone strikes. He's also expected, Brian, to unveil a new plan to try to shut down the prison camp on Guantanamo Bay, Cuba.
Chuck Todd from the White House tonight. Chuck, thanks.
So, the presidential promise before the election was to close down Guantanamo.
Yes, and of course, in that drone strike thing, first comes the death, then comes the legalese.
Yeah. Yeah. They sort of have this little, script running. Would you say is that what it is?
Habeas corpus, due process. We don't need that. That isn't part of democracy anymore.
I always love it. You're a civilization that kills people in a organized murder that's called war, and that's a civilization. We need that.
Yeah. Of course, when the commander-in-chief was doing the speech about drone strikes and Gitmo and all military things, he was being a bit distracted by the leader of Code Pink, Medea Benjamin.
Code Pink?
Yeah, that's an anti-war movement down in the States.
Oh, is that the one who...
Yeah, here, she's got something to say.
Oh, so, of course, he's got the clip. I'm sitting there going, wait a second, did we get that clip? Rob, that's so cool. Check it out.
Something that we haven't seen really before was that the presidential veneer, the Obama veneer was punctured somewhat by a heckler in the audience, and I think we can have a listen to and have a look at how Obama dealt with that.
He went on to. We went on.
Can you tell the Muslim people their lives are as precious as our lives? Can you take the drones out of the hands of the CIA? Can you stop the signature strikes that are killing people on the basis of suspicious activities?
We're addressing that, ma'am.
Apologize to the thousands of Muslims that you have killed. Will you compensate the innocent family victims?
The heckler was Medea Benjamin of Code Pink. The heckling itself and that it took place is a real indication of how angry people are. As far as we could pick up on the audio, she pretty much addressed every element of Obama's speech. So she called on him to compensate families who have been destroyed by drone strikes. She called on him to close Guantanamo Bay, called on him to release the prisoners who have been set for release for up to 10 years from the camp. But he dealt with it. He's a consummate performer, and he dealt with it very well, as any politician of his stature would. He's pointed to the fact that free speech allowed this lady to have her opinion, and he felt she went on a bit, and I think at that stage, after a minute or so, he'd certainly had enough. But I think the key takeaway and the key lesson is that these two elements of US policy of the so-called war on terror are absolutely unsustainable.
The so-called war on terror. We've seen this. People are starting to heckle. They're starting to stand up. I mean, like in Turkey, they're burning down the government house.
I wonder how the guy who was giving out passes to that press conference was dealt with after that incident.
But it's regular citizens. Okay, this is a regular woman who's just had enough and said straight out, you've got the CIA killing children. You got Guantanamo Bay, where they're force-feeding inmates so they don't starve themselves to death. No lawyers, no public, no justice. And, but this is land of the free.
I know. But, the CNN prostitutes had, to have a few words with Miss Benjamin as well.
Yes, they did.
And she had a response to them.
Let's check it out.
I posed the question on my Facebook page and asked them what they wanted to ask you. And a lot of them said that you were hurting your own cause because, one, you appeared rude to the President of the United States, and two, you just seemed a little crazy.
Well, I've gotten a fabulous response, and I think killing innocent people with drones is rude. I think keeping people who are innocent in indefinite detention for 11 years is rude. I think not respecting the lives of Muslim people is rude. I think not apologizing to the families of innocent people who are killed is rude. There are a lot of rude things about our policies. Speaking out is actually not rude, but it's the basis of a democratic society where people use their voices to try to make our country better and our policies
I don't think many
more in line with
Americans
the rule of law.
would disagree with you, but I would think that some Americans at least would say there's a time and a place.
Well, exactly. I've been waiting for over 5 years when the president said he was going to close Guantanamo. The time for words is over. It's time for action. He is the commander-in-chief. He can do this on his own.
All right. Medea Benjamin with Code Pink, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me on.
And it's constant all over Kelowna right now, and when we were doing Occupy, we said, well, those people that are talking on camera are rude.
Yeah.
You know, it's amazing. They're offended that they might be considered rude, but killing children's okay.
Yeah, well, they're only foreigners, so,
Yeah, they're brown people, and, they only follow the same God that the GOP does. But, ignore that because they're brown,
Yes, of course, the drone technology is evolving.
Yes.
And soon there not may be humans in the loop.
Yes.
So they have to have a discussion in the UN on the ethics of autonomous killing machines.
So, if you think 1984, if you think George Orwell or any of that stuff is bizarre and strange, this is where the Twilight Zone actually hits the UN.
A robot invasion outside the British Parliament last month as campaigners aim to highlight what they say are the imminent dangers of robots that are able to kill. Among them, American Jodie Williams, who won the 1997 Nobel Peace Prize for her role in the campaign to ban landmines.
There has to be discussion about technology that will totally transform war. And when my country wants to call it a bloodless battlefield, I feel enraged.
The X-47B, one of the world's most advanced unmanned combat air vehicles, or drones, is currently undergoing flight testing in the United States, one of many countries to operate such programs. Noel Sharkey, a professor of artificial intelligence and robotics and chairman of the International Committee for Robot Arms Control, says drones mark the final step in the industrial revolution of war. Sharkey says currently all drones operate under human supervision, but supporters argue that technology like drones can eliminate human fallacy from the battlefield. A promotional video from South Korean industrial giant Samsung Techwin for its SGR-A1 Sentry robot, which aims to replace border or security guards with intelligent surveillance cameras. The robot is armed with a 5.5mm machine gun, but still controlled by human operators. The campaign group Human Rights Watch says it fears the human element could one day easily be removed. Campaigners say there is huge interest from industrial corporations in developing so-called killer robots, but the UN Human Rights Council wants to discuss a moratorium on their deployment next week in Geneva. Henry Ridgewell for VOA News, London.
So we ought to see what the UN has to say about this, yes?
Well, yes. I mean, it is a good idea to have these discussions before we give that power to machines.
Now, a
we
lot
may
of
decide we're just erroneous baggage.
Yeah, but we are. Okay, you got to remember that's the fascist way of looking at things. The general public is just baggage. And, people who are dressed up in costumes like uniforms or suits and ties, well, they have far more value than the average human.
Yes, of course.
Supports them and makes their life worthwhile.
However, it's the machine intelligence that may decide that we're all just cancer.
Well, look at Heinlein, iRobot. Okay.
Yeah.
If you take a look at the human species underneath this ludicrous assumption capitalism works, we're a cancer on society. We're a growing tumor that's out of control, and we do have to get this. But the way to do it is just abandon everything lazy that was taught to you by the baby boomers in suits and the uniforms in charge and actually start taking control of your life.
The time for action is now.
And we're flying into action. We're going to be helping people out right across the Okanagan Valley and the world as we open source the way to change the world and to, of course, make activism effective. I'm Darren Howard.
And I'm Robert Nisbet.
It's so good to be with you. We're recording all week. We've got lots of shows coming up, so stay tuned. Make sure you like and share as you go and question what we're talking about because we're not going to make commercials that say, trust us. We're Radio Free Canada.
Not doing anything about poverty is costing us all. British Columbia has the highest poverty rate in Canada. Not addressing this comes at a price. And this is what it looks like when we do the math. For starters, it costs us $1.2 billion per year to pay for the healthcare costs related to poverty. We've heard a lot lately about how we need to get tough on crime. But some crime could be prevented by reducing poverty, which is linked to crimes of desperation, low literacy rates, and living in unsafe situations.